All right, welcome to the Golden Belt Buckle podcast. Today we're going to be taking a look at the English proficiency laws that are being enforced by the Trump administration and see if we can make sense out of it and maybe give some ideas to anybody who's affected by it. I know for Canadian companies, I was reading the other day, I'm assuming it's new Canadians, right? I'm assuming. I guess it could be French-speaking Canadians too, but it could be some fleets upwards to 70% of their employees who are having issues with the English language. So let's take a look at this law here and see if we can make any sense of this. Got my new spectacles. Had to get some eye surgery done. They took my lens out of my eye. So this law, what is it? You must be proficient. You must be able to speak English proficiently to operate a motor vehicle in the U.S. And when was it enacted? We're going to take a look at that right now. We'll go take a look at the text from, see if we got the 1936 text. So here's the original 1936 rule. It went into effect July 1st, 1937, establishing the English proficiency requirement. The text says, on and after July 1st, 1937, no motor vehicle carrier shall drive or require or permit any person to drive any motor vehicle operated in interstate or foreign commerce unless the person so driving possesses the following minimum qualification. One is the ability to read and speak the English language, unless the person was engaged in driving on July 1st, 1937, or within 1 year prior thereto. But in any case, ability to understand traffic and warning signs. So this law, it wasn't created by Donald Trump. Now, we now know that it goes back all the way to 1937. So this has been an issue for almost 100 years. And unless you're over 100 years old, this law, it's applying to you. The preamble, we'll read that first and we'll get into it. It says, it's evident that the ability to read and speak English is important to any adequate compliance with safety regulations. Cognizance has been taken, however, of the existence in certain areas of numbers of drivers in present service who are unable to read or speak English. But even in these cases, the ability to at least understand traffic and warning signs is required. Okay, so obviously there was some sort of connection between the ability to speak English and maybe there were some accidents, people didn't understand the traffic signs. I mean, I can see how that would be an issue. So we'll go over here, if I can find we'll go over to general okay, this is from 1990 or 2001. It's pretty much the same law. A person shall not drive a commercial motor vehicle unless he or she is qualified to drive a commercial motor vehicle except as provided in 391.63. A motor carrier shall not require or permit a person to drive a motor vehicle unless that person is qualified to drive a commercial motor vehicle. So it says they must be at least 21 years old. They can read and speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the general public, to understand highway, traffic signs and signals in the English language, to respond to official inquiries, and to make entries on reports and records. That's pretty much, there's other ones too, but that's pretty much it. So the law says you need to be able to or read and speak the English language so you can do the basics of the job, right? And again, it goes back 100 years. This is not a Donald Trump law. He didn't enact it for some reason. I kept hearing Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. This is, from what I'm reading, it sounds to me like this law has been, I've read several articles, okay? You get a lot of conflicting information, but it sounds to me like the law has been more or less enforced over the past 90 years. It all just depends on who the administration is that's in charge. There was one I was reading about the ACLU. they were defending people who couldn't speak English. They were saying they were arguing that according to the 1936 law, when you read the law, it says no motor carrier shall allow a person to operate a commercial motor vehicle unless they are proficient in the English language, can read and write, kind of thing. So, right in the language, the ACLU was arguing it's not for the government to put someone out of service at roadside. It never was, right in the beginning. It's always been the duty of the carrier to make sure that the driver is proficient. So I'm guessing that would mean the onus was supposed to be, that the onus was on the carrier. If you get taken out of service, then your carrier should get the fine for that. I mean, I'm guessing, at least that's what I've read. So that is the law. Now, we will go. So why is it becoming an issue? People are concerned with discrimination. You know, people with accents, people of color. I know one article I was reading, it said that a lot of people who cross the border, who go into the States from Canada, a lot of these people, I don't know if it's a majority or what, but it's a lot, it's a good portion. It's people who are new Canadians, right? So the argument is, even though this is not specifically targeted at new Canadians, it could be, right? It could be used to discriminate against them. They're saying it's not, the language doesn't specifically say it's targeted at them, but it really is targeted at them. That's what the concern is. And there's also concern about, you know, how standardized is the testing, right? Is one officer going to look at a person, and are they going to say, hey, this guy, you know, I'm not happy with how he does it, but then another officer, he says, no, he's good. So then you got a guy getting a fine for not being able to speak the English language when, you know, it differs between officers, right? So I know all about that. So that's another objection I've read. So then there's concern that it will make recruiting more difficult. That's not really the problem with the government. There's concern that it could interrupt supply chains. Well, that's a double-edged sword. Because I mean, if you're an American and you're a truck driver, I would think that would be a good thing for you, right? If supply chains are interrupted, then that should mean there would be a driver shortage, which means you should be getting paid more money, right? So that's kind of a double-edged sword. That's not really, you know, those aren't problems for the American government. That's a problem for our carrying companies. And then critics argue there has been no probable link between lack of English and any accidents. So that's, from what I'm reading, the law, since the 1970s, DOT officers have been allowed to put you out of service. Okay, so that's in the 1970s, they made it so you could be put out of service for not being able to be proficient in English language. And it's 2016, they relaxed this law because there was, again, like I said, this whole law has been more or less enforced since 1936. So in 2016, there was no good evidence given that a lack of English communication skills led to any accidents. So the government stopped enforcing it. From 2016 to 2025, there has been more argument that there has been an increase in traffic accidents because people can't speak English. And I can only imagine as that got to do with, maybe people, it says people need to be able to read signs. Does that mean that their ability to read is so bad they can't even understand a traffic sign? Maybe. I don't know. Never been an issue. Actually, one other thing I was reading, that they're saying that instead of worrying about whether or not someone can speak English, there's other factors that are proven and everybody agrees on, like people driving distracted, people driving when they're tired. Like I just did that video about the I-20 wreck, right? If you haven't watched that, go check it out. Make sure you like and subscribe at the same time. But you know, drivers driving fatigued, drivers going over their hours. They're saying these are the issues that really cause the accidents, not that have been proven, not someone who can't speak English. And I know it might make people angry. I'm just the messenger. I'm just relaying what I've read. Okay. So the consequences, if you do, actually, let me back up for a second. I can understand the officers being frustrated if you can't interact with them. That's probably got part to do with it as well. But if you miscommunicate and you're dealing with someone who's doing roadside, I can imagine that would be a problem too, right? If you can't communicate with someone who's doing roadside with you and you accidentally run them over, I mean, I've almost done that, and I speak English. But if you just, you know, maybe you think they said go and they said stop, and you end up smashing them when they're under your truck fixing your brakes or something. You know, I don't know. Something to consider. Anyways, so federally, the consequences, you're just placed out of service. But in some states, you could be facing monetary fines of $3,000 in Oklahoma to $500 to $1,000 in Arkansas. Now, I've even heard of some states. I've seen videos, people saying that people have actually been arrested. They got taken away in handcuffs. Now, I looked into that. It is true. There have been people that have been arrested for not being able to speak English, and I don't know if that's because, was it their second offense? You know, where they already told don't come back and they came back. I mean, I read that could happen as well. If you're placed out of service, don't try to come back to the state, right? Don't try to go back to the States unless you've fixed that issue, I guess, right? So that brings us to what's being done. Some companies are enacting English lessons. Actually, I got more on that. We'll get to that in a second. Now, I will say, my initial thought when I started reading all this stuff, I kind of feel like this has been an issue, knowing that this has been an issue for over almost 100 years, right? This has been almost an issue for 100 years. Knowing it's been an issue for over almost 100 years, and living in, okay, you could say the United States isn't a democracy, but it kind of is, right? It's democratic. It's democratic. It's a democratic republic. I live in a constitutional monarchy, Canada, right? But when you live in anywhere where you got democracy, you have to know that when a new administration takes over, they're going to do away with what the previous administration did, right? And in this case you got right now, where society's so polarized, you got, we're on the road to radical nationalism, right? Probably because we're already on the road of radical globalism, and you know, I see the need for both, right? But for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into that right here, the Americans are feeling really nationalistic at this moment. So you have to know, if you're doing business in a democratic state, the will of the people changes like the weather. And you get a law like this that's been on the books since 1936, and you're not taking that very seriously. Maybe you're just acting like it's not going to come back to bite you in the rear end at some point if you don't have drivers that can speak proficient English, or you know, you have to know that's going to come back and bite you, right? So that's my first thought. So then my second thought is, whoever's giving you advice failed you, right? I don't know if the MTO, someone maybe in the comments you can tell me, but I've wondered, does the MTO, like I hear rumors, right? But does the MTO give you a translator to do your license, right? Are they giving you your tests in a different language to suit you so you can get your AZ license in Canada? I would like to know if that's true. Can you please reach out in the comments and let me know? But if that's the case, and people are just, no one's telling you this, that in the States they do have laws in the books that state you need to be able to be proficient in English, and that they've been more or less enforced over the years. I feel like you've been failed. I don't know that you can blame the average driver going down the road. I really don't. I don't know if you can blame that guy, right? They're just trying to provide for their families like everybody else. They followed the rules. They played by the rules they were given, right? I remember back in 2020, I was killing it. I was on top of the world. I didn't think I could ever fall. And then all of a sudden, society changed its rules. We're locked down, and I was doing auto parts at the time. It all dried up. All the business dried up, and I got screwed. Now in this case, you probably got some poor guy that's been going around feeding his family, and now he's getting screwed. He's getting caught up in politics. And that's what happens, right? So, but whatever. I don't make these, I don't make the rules like you, like everybody else. I have to live in these rules, and sometimes they change and we get bit in the rear end and we got to go with it. So what can you do? This is the important thing right here. We can be all doom and gloom about this. And I know this is kind of boring. It's real information. Real information is often boring, but what can we do about this? So this is from the FMCSA. If you're a fleet manager, I'm sure you already know this, but if you don't, if you're a smaller fleet and you haven't read this yet, this is from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So it's the American government. This is what they're saying to do if you haven't done it already. And you can download this document. Maybe I will copy this link. I'm going to copy this link and it's going to go in my description. Okay, I'm going to put several links in the description. Make sure you like and subscribe, by the way. I'd really appreciate it. So, question: what should a motor carrier do to assess a commercial motor vehicle's driver's English language proficiency? So that's ELP. They shorten to ELP during the driver qualification process. And the guidance is, because 49 CFR 391.11a prohibits a motor carrier from requiring or permitting a person to drive a CMV unless that person is qualified, a motor carrier should assess a driver's qualifications, including the ability to comply with the English language proficiency requirements of 49 CFR 391.11. Motor carriers may conduct this assessment using various methods. The assessment should include processes to evaluate whether the driver is able to sufficiently communicate with law enforcement officers during a roadside inspection, for example, and to understand highway traffic signs that they may encounter while driving. FMCSA recommends that a motor carrier manager conduct a driver interview in English and include inquiries that would show whether the driver could answer questions related to: number 1, the origin and destination of a recent or planned trip. 2, the amount of time spent on duty, including driving time and the record of duty status or logbook. 3, the information contained in the driver's license. 4, information contained in shipping papers, actual or sample shipping papers, including hazardous materials, shipping papers, if applicable, for the load transport to be transported. And number 5, vehicle equipment subject to inspection. Because the driver interview is a means of establishing the driver's ability to respond to official inquiries by speaking English sufficiently, the manager should inform the driver that the driver should respond to the inquiries in English. Tools to facilitate communication, such as interpreters, I-speak cards, cue cards, smartphone applications, and on-call telephone interpretation service, should not be used during the driver interview, as those tools may mask a driver's inability to communicate in English. FMCSA also recommends that the manager explain to the driver that the ELP regulation requires the driver to sufficiently understand and explain the meaning of U.S. highway signs. The manager should select various signs from the Federal Highway Administration's Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, as well as examples of dynamic message signs the driver may encounter while operating a CMV, and ask the driver to explain the meaning of the selected signs. The driver's explanation may be in any language, provided the manager is able to understand the driver's explanation. After the successful completion of the ELP assignment, the manager may proceed with the rest of the interview in a language other than English as appropriate. Then it's got the contact info, 1-800-832-5660. You can get all this if you follow the link, you can get all this. But you know, I can't understand why you would not want to learn the English language if you're hauling in the States. I mean, or anywhere where someone speaks a different language. I mean, I remember years ago I was dispatched to go to a primarily Spanish community, and even though they all spoke English, and they would speak English, they were all cool. I remember having the one fella, what was his name? I had it on the tip of my tongue just before I started recording this. Really good guy. Anyway, I had him teaching me Spanish because I needed to know enough Spanish. To me, it's just a respect thing, right? I wasn't obligated to learn their language, but I'm a Canadian going to their community. They're in the States, right? So I would have him teach me a little bit of Spanish every day. Just give me a word, right? And then I was able to I knew enough information to know where the bathroom was, to let them know why I was late. Is my load ready? You know, that kind of thing. Is my paperwork ready? Or I could give them my paperwork, whatever. I knew just enough to get by on the job, right? And really, it would have helped me out a lot, because when I used to go down to Eagle Pass. I only took the odd load, right? Maybe two of them, right? So that's, even say it was odd load, it was like rare. But I went down to Eagle Pass, and I remember getting down there. Those guys, they're all Mexicans, even though they're supposed to speak English, and they did. They're all Mexicans, and I remember they were talking to each other in Mexican. I had no idea what they were even talking about, but it was after that I got with Miguel, that was the guy's name. He started teaching me the Spanish, and it's helped me out on a number of situations whenever I'm talking to someone. Like I was just at a drop in Toronto a little while ago, and a guy, he didn't speak a word of English, right? You can complain, you're supposed to know English. Well, you can complain about it, you can go with it, whatever. And I was in an area where I wasn't sure I was supposed to be. I was like, I started asking him, is my truck okay here, in English, and he didn't understand what I was saying. It's like, es mi camion, is it es mi camion bien? And he understood exactly what I was getting at when I said it in Spanish to him, right? And so we knew enough just to get me, to let me know I was good. But I can't see why you wouldn't want to know the language. I mean, even in Canada, driving to Quebec, I hate going to Quebec because I don't know French. French is an official language in Canada, and I don't like going to Quebec because I cringe whenever I go there. I went to Montreal once. I accidentally found the shipper. Thank God, I didn't know where I was going. It's all one-way streets, and the guy, he told me go to Jean Dallon, and I'm like, Jean Dallon, okay, Jean Dallon, and I spelled it for him. I get to Montreal, and I'm not seeing a Jean Dallon. How do you think that's spelled? Jean. It was actually Jean Talon, right? Jean is easy enough. I was looking for, like, what was I looking for? Jean-Dallon, Jean Dallon, right? It's spelled like I say. It was actually John, John, or Jean Talon. I can't remember which one it was, but it didn't look anything like the guy said. So you should want to know the language. What if I did get into an accident? I would have gotten into an accident because I missed my stop, but I was panicking. I didn't know where I was going, right? When you get lost, you're more likely to panic, right? And if you miss a sign because you can't speak the language, well, that is putting you at risk to get into an accident you don't need to be in. So to me, it just makes sense. You would want to know the language. And again, I'm not smashing it. We all do what we got to do, right? Any immigrant that comes here from the home country, they got balls. They've got guts. It takes a lot to go to another country where you don't know anybody. You don't know the language. I don't know how I would fare, right? But I would want to learn the language. So that's your direction. That's the information behind it. and that's the direction. It's not a conspiracy by Trump. He's not the one who created any of the out of service stuff. He didn't create the law. He didn't create the out of service. It's just the nature of politics. Sometimes it's more or less enforced. Depends on how nationalistic or globalistic the government is, or whatever. Whoever's in charge, right? We don't make the rules. We just adapt to the rules. And there's one other thing I wanted to say before signing off here. Maybe it's not important, but anyway, that's the podcast today. I've got some, if you're not aware, all right, if you're a driver who struggles to maintain their weight, if you're an OTR driver who struggles to maintain weight, check out my resource, check out my other podcast actually on, it's called The Trucker's Body, or The Secrets to Losing Weight Over the Road. I am a certified trainer. I have a diploma in personal training, and I break everything down for you nice and easy, okay? Like you don't have to swallow the whole thing all at once, okay? You can lose weight nice and slowly, okay? And it's like painless dentistry, right? The new thing with dentistry is painless dentistry. Well, I believe in painless weight loss. I don't think it should have to be a giving up your whole life thing, right? So I give all the goods away for free, really, on that earlier podcast I did. And there is a compendium book that goes with it. If you're interested in it, unfortunately, the free offer's over. If you're one of the select few that subscribed and watched the slowest growing ever channel on YouTube in its history, and you took advantage of it, you got the free version, then great. If not, I've got a link. I'll put that up there again in the description. It's in all my descriptions where you can get it from, so check it out. It's The Trucker's Body. Other than that, please like and subscribe. Enjoy your day. Keep the rubber side down. Cheers.